Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. On the agenda tonight, we have something a little bit different. I'm going to be looking at drummer Randy Castillo, and more specifically, I'm going to be looking at his documentary that's just come out. It came out yesterday, 12th of October on Amazon Prime, called The Life, Blood and Rhythm Randy Castillo. I was contacted by the producer for this documentary, and it's been labelled the rockumentary of 2018. So I thought I'd have a look. I'm not getting paid to do this or do a review or anything. I just had a little look at it and said that I'll do a video on it because Randy was such a legend on drums in the 80s. As I said, he was just on everything, Ozzy Osbourne and Motley Crue as well. But I'm gonna just have little bits of the documentary that I'm gonna play and just have a word about his drumming, but also about the documentary in general. But let's get this up on screen and let's get some little tasters of Randy's playing. And I don't want to go into it in too much depth on this video because you've got to watch the documentary. That can go into so much more detail than I can. But in terms of Randy's playing, he was one of those guys that absolutely not only focused on that solid playing, and like we see here, the little drum solos that you always have at Ozzy Osbourne gigs and all hard rock and metal gigs, there's always a little drum solo in there. But the fact that Randy's so solid, but he also brought to the table the showmanship, and certainly mentioned in the documentary is the fact that when a drummer is behind that wall of drums, it's very hard to stick out. But Randy absolutely did that. He was an absolute showman and just a fantastic guy as well. But what I love about this documentary is the fact that it isn't just one of those that's been thrown together from footage you've already seen and interviews with people, and you've probably already seen the interviews. There's so many big players here who are adding to the story of Randy. Not only is it going to give you a really great background on Randy's playing, interestingly, talking about that just reminded me of the fact that we have a little talk with Randy's first ever drum teacher, and his teacher actually said when he came to me, he wasn't the best, but he was so enthusiastic. He had a love for it, he had a drive for it. And that brings up an interesting point that I always mention about guitar players who really reach those technically high levels, and people think, oh, I can never play like that, and that player is so talented. I tend to always say to people that even the guys who are considered really talented, they will say it's 10% talent and 90% hard work. And for a drum teacher to say about Randy that he wasn't the best, but he had that drive, once you set your mind to it, you can achieve anything. And Randy is the absolutely shining example of that. The fact that he might not have been the most natural drummer in the world, but he absolutely worked away at it to then become one of the best in the world, and especially in rock and metal, one of the best drummers ever. I've just wound it forward here just to get a little bit more of Randy's drumming and how solid he is. A great thing to listen out for is the foot pedal. I always love listening out for foot pedals when drummers do their solos, but have a little listen to this.
And then landed on the ground, and the chains were taken off and it went back up. So visually that was just incredible.
Randy was a total influence. Prior to seeing him live with Ozzy, then I had already seen him on MTV with Lita Ford. And I remember just totally taking notice of him, going, well, you know, he's super visual, looked great when he's playing, you know, powerful sound. He was the guy to watch, and he was the guy to beat, you know, and
an absolute beast on those skins. And again, putting that showmanship side into it. This is what you'll find with all the top players pretty much over any instrument. When they've excelled on a particular instrument, so many players can get to a good technical level, but then it's how you then combine that with entertainment, with connecting with the crowd. I'm not going to get into the ins and outs of Randy's technique and all that kind of stuff on drums, because you've got to watch the documentary, because there are guys, real top players, who absolutely break it down and just tell you how good Randy was. And take their word for it, don't take my word for it, because I am fundamentally a guitarist, but I love listening to great drummers, and Randy was absolutely that beating heart, like I mentioned, in the 80s with Ozzy. And to a certain extent, people who listen to Ozzy might have felt that when Randy came along, it then actually took Ozzy to a whole new level. Just the lineup just got a boost when Randy got on those skins. But the way that the documentary's been put together really gives you a sense of not only the musical side of Randy and his ability, but also the personal side. We have lots of interview with family and just getting a vibe of what kind of guy he was. The fact he's such a great guy, just a nice guy. Nobody has a bad word to say about him, and would always be positive. He's just such a positive, outgoing guy, and one of those guys that I think a lot of people just gravitated towards because he was just a personality when he entered the room. The documentary is narrated by Lita Ford, who of course knew Randy very well, but we've got testimonies from players, guitar players, drummers, bassists, all from around that time that were in the same circles, that are just saying how great Randy was and how he added something to every track that he played on. Just really did level it up, took it to a totally different place with his style and his intensity on the drums. But the documentary doesn't gloss over Randy's later years, the fact that when he had his first bout of illness, we have a lot of family interviews here, so you can actually get a personal understanding of what it was like for Randy and his family at the time to then come through that, but then to have to actually go through it again, and unfortunately it proved too much the second bout, and it really does move you. It is a real personal story. So we've got that half just a great musician and so much great playing and ability and just him as a person, but then you've also got that side of it that really does show the struggles and what an illness like cancer can do. Even myself, before I was born, I lost my grandmother to cancer, so I never got to meet her, and I think this documentary will hit a chord with a lot of people because everyone can relate to this. Everyone's been affected by cancer in their life at some point, if it isn't them personally, people they've known or friends, and it's just a really nasty illness. But the fact that Randy's so positive, and also the fact that this illness, it doesn't care who you are, what you've done, what your background is. Randy was just such a great guy, but as I said, it just doesn't care. And at the moment in the UK here, we have a Stand Up to Cancer campaign, which is actually happening at the moment. So it's a really great time to get the awareness out there. And if you can, donate anything, just anything which will help in order to get more research into this and stop great people, fantastic people just being taken for absolutely no reason. In conclusion, this is a great documentary because the fact that it's been so long in production hasn't just been thrown together, and the fact that we get not only an appreciation of Randy's playing from a professional viewpoint of people that he played with and also people that were around at the time really at the top of their game, but also we get that personal story as well from friends and family that really touch on some serious topics. So it's really got everything, and it's really tastefully done. It pretty much doesn't matter what genre you're into, because Randy, you get to learn what he's like as a person, and you just get to appreciate his drive to succeed, and it's also a great personal story. So this is out on Amazon Prime now, so definitely check it out. It's worth your time. I'm not getting paid for this review. I'm just an 80s music lover, and I just wanted to do a review on this because Randy is the absolute foundation of so much of that 80s sound. He's absolutely fundamental to all those tracks that everybody loves. There's so many. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you've seen this documentary, just leave a comment. It'll be cool to know what you guys think of it. Thanks to the producers in the first place for approaching me about this and suggesting it. But if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Check out this documentary, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!